This meeting is being recorded.
All right. Welcome everybody to the Alternative Energy Committee meeting of Thursday, September 8th, 2022. We are allowed to do this by Zoom under legislation from the state. So thank you everybody for participating. This meeting has been duly posted in accordance with open meeting laws. And we are very excited to hear from our guest speaker, Matt, the parent today, but we have just some small things before we start. Welcome everybody. Debbie, thank you as always for your amazing meeting minutes. What I'd like to do before we go to approve the July 28th meeting minutes is have everybody go around and introduce themselves just for the record.
You just froze on us,
My name
Tanya.
is Tanya Bodell. I'm chair of the Alternative Energy Committee. Steve,
Hi, I'm Steve Wenner, member of the committee.
can you see me now? Oh
Yes.
no.
Yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
You're on.
Oh, now you're frozen again.
I'll introduce myself. Hi, I'm Josh Stoughton, part of the AEC.
I'm Chris Aldifson, part of the AEC as well.
Pat Gooding, AEC.
Mike
Debbie
Schmidt,
Cook,
AC member.
and Debbie Cook, AEC.
I'm Corey Evans, a part of the select board here in Cohasset and liaison to the AEC.
Great. So I have an unstable connection, which I'm hoping will improve. I think to be safe, what I'd like to do is see if there's some way that I can hand the leadership of this over to somebody else, but I don't know quite how to do that.
Tanya, can you call in as well? So we have a phone, your cell and your video?
Yeah, I can call in. Let me call in.
That doesn't work because then you get an echo.
Yeah, you get feedback often when you do that.
I can
Yeah.
also, I can mute myself.
can-
So let
yeah,
me do
okay.
that.
Yeah,
Hold on. In the meantime, welcome everybody. Why don't you take a minute to approve the meeting minutes from July 28th, 2022?
okay, I move that we approve the minutes.
I second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, we have to do a roll call vote. So all in favor?
Pat Gooding, aye.
Steve Wenner, aye.
Followed by pound.
Josh Stoughton, aye.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Chris Aldifson, aye.
Not entered any numbers.
Tanya Bodell, aye.
Mike Schmidt,
All right.
aye.
Great. And the meetings are passed unanimously. All right, fabulous. With the meetings passed, I'm going to try to participate. Sorry. I'm going to try to call in and put myself on mute. But in the meantime, I'd like to introduce Matthew Parent. Pat, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction to Matthew and why we thought it'd be a great idea to have him come and present?
Matt has the, I guess, the position of being our equivalent alternative energy chair in Marshfield. And Matt, I'll let you correct me if that's the wrong position to call out. But also Matt was helpful with us in the Go Electric effort. So he's also obviously in Marshfield is working with us on community aggregation. And I specifically hope that Matt could share some of his insights in terms of the procurement of EV chargers. I know Marshfield's in the process of getting a number of them and installing them. So I'm hoping he can touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Nope, that was all accurate. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, no, that was all accurate. So you want to know about EV chargers, or do you want to know about everything that we're doing in Marshfield, or where would you like me to start?
If you don't mind starting with the chargers and then tell us a little bit more about what, some of your big efforts are, that would be great.
Sure. So well, it all started with the effort of putting solar on the landfill, and then we're also putting solar, which we did, put solar at the new police station, DPW, wastewater treatment plant, all the schools, et cetera, et cetera. So when we're all done, it'll be about 23 megawatts of solar installed, which will generate about $2.5 million a year in revenue for the town for the next 25 years. So at each location, we're going to be putting in EV charging stations as we do solar, as well as other locations where we're not putting solar, like the town hall, the fire station, library plaza, things of that nature. So all in all, when we're done, we'll have about 40 charging stations each. Well, they're all dual, so there'll be about 80 ports altogether when we're done.
Matt, will any of those be level 3 chargers?
Are they free?
Level 3. Any
Um,
level 3, or are they all level 2?
They're going to be all level 2 chargers, charge point charging stations. And it's going to be pay as you go. None of them will be free for the public.
Can you, Matt, can you explain what sort of contract you have with ChargePoint? Are they going to, do you have a contract for them for maintenance, or just to handle the accounting data?
The accounting, the data, and we'll have to purchase the software, that was a bit of a surprise for me, but yeah, they get you there. And I believe there is a maintenance contract as well. We're in early stages on the EV charging side, just because we're just starting to roll out the solar now. So, but that is the plan moving forward.
Say, Matt, have you started to think about how to think about how much you're going to charge?
No, we haven't gotten that far. We're going to take the advice of ChargePoint and what they have been doing locally for what we're going to charge. So it sounds like you guys are at that stage where you're thinking about that.
Yes. Yeah, I've been calling around, Matt, to all the local towns and trying to get some information, but you're the closest to getting to charging a fee, if you will. And so that's why I was trying to get that information from you earlier, because we wanted to have a ballpark of what we should be doing. And also, could you let us know, are you planning to purchase the Assure program that ChargePoint offers for each of the chargers?
Yeah, we are planning to do that as well.
And are they quoting you like a few thousand?
Correct. Yes. Once I get the final numbers and their recommendation on what we should charge, I'll certainly share that with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Sure.
Matt?
Okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Matt, have you thought at all conceptually about whether you want to have a fee schedule that has includes depreciation and a fund to replace the chargers at the end of their useful life, or?
No, I haven't gotten that far.
Got it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Matt, did you consider any other charging network besides ChargePoint?
We did. It just seemed like that they were the most solid and widely used. We didn't, we currently have Siemens installed at the town hall, and we're not quite happy with their level of service. And I had spoken to other vendors as well, and I felt that, sure, it's not the cheapest, but I felt like they were the most solid and forward thinking. Is that what you guys find as well?
I'm sorry. Did you have problems with the Siemens chargers in terms of, the hardware, software?
Yes. I know Michael has a little bit, and it's actually free at the moment with Siemens, but it just felt like they weren't really keeping up with the technology because it's changing so fast. So
Okay.
I feel like this was a better move.
I happened to speak with Patrick Farah in Plymouth about their chargers. I guess they only have 11 of them, but he
Right.
said he was, I'm sure you've spoken to him. He was not, he was not very happy with ChargePoint and their, basically the 1-year warranty on the chargers. Is that going to be the same thing that you're going to get as 1 year on the chargers?
It is, yes, but that'd be hard pressed to find, 5-10-year warranty on a charging station. Yeah. What has your research found?
Been able to get much information at all. I was hoping that you might have better information since you've been out there talking to them extensively. But yeah, what Patrick said is that they had a few of the new ones that went bad, and they charged them something like $5,000 to fix them for each one.
Oh, really?
And so that's when he mentioned that, that Assure program may have paid for itself, but it was expensive also.
Right. Is it, aren't they offering it for free to residents in Plymouth?
Yeah, I guess that's mainly because they have it, downtown where all the shopping is. So they think that's a draw to the local merchants and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think people will use it either way. I'm not worried that it's free or not free. It's certainly cheaper than gas anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Matt, this is Corey.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I just wanted to ask, so 40 charges, that's a big project. So I just wanted to, and I know I could find this, but while you're here, how did the funding pieces come together? Is it primarily grant? Were you able to get some funding out of the municipal budget from the town? What's coming together? Because this is a much larger kind of project than we see typically in towns that, you kind of onesie twosies here and there.
For the charging stations?
Yeah.
Well, the infrastructure part's free from the utility, and there were state grants that we got so far that paid for the actual hardware of the post itself. So far it's been, utility and a grant from the state.
Okay.
And what I've learned, they're extending that program.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat where, we've been able to take advantage of grant programs. And I think what you're hearing from us is the challenge is now what's next, right? Because we want to continue to provide this service, but we're running into this capital and maintenance cost that is just hard to kind of figure out, are chargers a policy goal? Are they a convenience? Are they a revenue source? And I think just as a concept, it's great that these get funded, but then it's kind of unclear for municipalities where we should go from there once they're put in.
Sure.
That seems to be the case.
Sure. Well, that was the bigger picture for me, was if we're going to get revenue from the solar, which we have revenue now from our existing landfill, and then we'll have 2.5 from future projects, that part of that be put toward other initiatives like switching from boiler to heat pump, and then EV charging station maintenance. So we're putting probably $150,000 to $200,000 a year just in energy efficiency improvements on top of the green community money that we get.
Are you putting that savings or that funding into a revolving fund or an enterprise account? How are you tracking kind of the money that you're saving? Is that you're insured it's going to the reasons that you want it to?
Oh, it goes into a fund that has to be for energy efficiency of renewable projects only. That's the way it's been set up. And it has, by charter, it has to go that way. It doesn't go into the general fund.
Okay, that's an important piece of information. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. And that was something Mike Moresco set up long before I even arrived, because it was part of the solar farm that was put up on Clay Pit Road 15 years ago.
So the structure and the mechanisms were kind of already there. I think that's one thing that we're looking at. Where, currently a lot of our solar, it's saving the town, but we're applying the revenues as credits towards expenses. And if we were to expand significantly, then we're kind of struggling with that same question of, should we ensure that the money that we're making here isn't just disappearing into the general fund as it's kind of want to do, but it's being used in a way that ensures a alternative energy future, clean energy future. So it's nice that you guys had that set up ahead of time for sure.
Hey, Corey,
Yeah,
can you, sorry, for the newbie here, could you just sort of help me understand your line of questions here? All our money in Cohasset that we from our solar savings just goes back into the general fund. We aren't able to recycle it in any way. And you're saying Marshfield does do that?
Yeah, so basically, is my understanding, and Tanya, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just repeating kind of how it's been explained to me as best I can, which is basically the solar field that we have now generates credits against a bill, and that the town has chosen to apply those credits towards either I think the school's electricity costs, so we can apply them to an account. Basically, because of how the solar farms are, because it's owned by a third party, even though it's a town land, it generates credits. We apply those credits towards a bill that we have. So that just means that fund, whatever we would be paying just gets reduced. We're not capturing that quote unquote savings and for the purposes of anything else. Does that make sense, Chris? It's a savings that we don't really get to see. It gets cut off of what our utility bill would have been, but we're not reapplying that savings or making.
So we can't reinvest it somehow. And it sounds like Marshfield has a mechanism which they have actually set up a fund where those savings go into a fund and they can recycle it into other projects.
That's what it sounds like, right? And that's what we were talking, with it's something we've just been talking about, in town hall a little bit is, if we're going to be doing these projects and saving the town a lot of money, let's be sure that savings is captured somehow. And what is the mechanism to do that? So Matt, I'll hand it back to you.
No, I mean, to add on to that, that was when I came in a while back. I was like, if we're going to save, money doing efficiency projects and renewable energy projects, can we take a portion of that? Give me 10% of that, and let's reinvest that into more efficiency and energy projects. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. How do we set up, that mechanism to do that every time we do it? It just seemed it would be harder to keep asking for more money to say, all right, upgrade the boiler and let's do heat pumps, as opposed to, well, we've already got that funded by other things that we're doing. So it made sense to them, and that's how we've organized it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Sorry, did you explain, Matt, how you're doing that? Is that a revolving fund?
How that actual fund is set up would have to be talked to the treasurer of Marshfield, but that just the general idea of being able to capture that and only using it for renewable energy efficiency measures was sort of the concept. How they actually charted that, I don't know. I could find that out from Patrick if you want me to.
Yeah, that would actually be very helpful. We are thinking through how to do that given municipal law. And it seems like a revolving fund might be the best way to do it, since we don't have our own municipal light company, which could justify an enterprise fund. So I think there are 3 different ways to do it, but we'd be interested in hearing how you're proceeding. For sure.
Sure. Got it. I'll find that out. What else do you guys want to know about?
Who are you working with on your solar installation?
NextGrid is the developer. They're a large, very large solar developer. They do a lot of projects in Massachusetts.
Right.
They were the best bid over Amoresco, Citizen, a bunch of the big hitters. Yeah. And it was Mary O'Donnell was part of that, but now she's not. Kind of funny. I assume everyone knows who Mary is.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us know who she is. Yeah, she's a hard to forget character, that's for sure.
Yeah,
That she is.
but she's Kingston though, right?
Yeah,
Matt,
but
she's
she came in
Kingston.
She is, but she came in as an investor into the RFP. So once we picked NextGrid, who's basically the developer, and Mary's name was attached to it, we ended up getting Mary off the contract. So, anyway, what else?
And
We're
the
in the,
panels are going to be owned by the municipality. They're actually physically owned by Marshfield.
No, it'll actually be owned by NextGrid. So we're doing
okay.
payment in lieu of taxes.
Gotcha. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, they'll maintain everything. Yeah, and yeah, we have a few projects that we needed done, like structural work at one of our elementary schools. So they're putting in $4 million into that work so we can get solar on the roof. You know, we're getting new roofs at a couple schools. We've put in capital improvements as part of this package, so we wouldn't have to do any capital improvements on that or any bonds for those projects. So I don't know if you guys know how that works.
That sounds like a wonderful opportunity for us.
So let's say you put a megawatt system on a school, but it needs a new roof. So you just ask the developer, well, as part of the package, redo the roof. They'll get the tax credits on it, and then just renegotiate your payment based on them doing the roof. Therefore, you don't need any capital fundraising or any bond for that roof, and the developer will take care of everything.
And it just comes out of the savings that you get going down the road. Tanya has spoken about this in previous meetings a lot, about trying to figure out exactly where the best break points are, you know, in those negotiations. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's
And
been wonderful in many ways to do that. Yeah.
assuming you can get enough savings, right, to be able to cover that. So
You
Matt,
can,
has the Inflation Reduction
sorry.
Act changed any way that you're thinking about the solar?
Quite a bit actually, because I think we'll get a bigger piece of the pie now that it's gone to 30, and then also the landfill is an additional 10 because it's a landfill. So now the developer gets 40 as opposed to it was just 26 federal ITC before. So we're going to go back to NextGrid and renegotiate that part of it. And then we're also looking at low-income properties in town, because I don't know if you know, but there's the 30% federal ITC plus an additional 20% if it's low income or multifamily low income.
At the federal level.
At the federal level, but there's the direct pay. So anything that's a nonprofit or a state entity gets the equivalent of what would be tax incentive as cash. Follow?
I
you
lost
there?
my connection there for a minute. I don't know if anybody else did. So I missed part of the, if you mentioned carports, Matt, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so
Well,
Matt was just saying that
about the
one of
tax
the,
credit. Yeah.
oh, sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, that's okay. So the Inflation Reduction Act put the 26% federal ITC to 30, as you know, but there are really good adders, one being a 10% for landfill, and then also a 20% for low-income housing. So if you have any low-income housing projects in your town, that would be a good way to do that as well. and the town itself can reap the benefits of that tax credit as direct pay. I'm not sure if you're aware of that portion of it.
Matt, does that have to go behind the meter for the property that has the low income housing? Or does it just have to, like if it's a mixed use with some 40B and it's in front, I mean, I'm guessing there's some strings attached to that 20% adder.
It just needs to be allocated to that low income. It could be front of the meter or behind the meter, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So this notion of the town reaping as a direct pay, does that mean, can you just describe what you mean about that, by that, Matt, just a little bit more?
Sure. Well, it's also going to depend on how you structure your solar project. Let's say you were to pay for the project yourself and it was costing $1 million. And normally you don't get that federal ITC because you're a state entity, you don't pay taxes. Well, with the direct pay, you actually get that money, that 30% off that $1 million as cash payment. And next time you do your taxes.
But the town doesn't pay taxes, so how do you get the money?
So what the Inflation Reduction Act did was say any nonprofit, any not-for-profit, any state entity, anyone who doesn't pay taxes, of 501, C or whatever, 503C, you now have the opportunity to take advantage of this federal ITC, as everyone did in the past who was paying taxes, all for-profit entities, and you literally can just get that federal ITC as cash back to you from the government.
Okay, it's as simple as that. You say, okay, we don't pay taxes, but we want our 30%, send us a check for $300,000.
That's right, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. And like I said, there are adders too. When I'm doing solar thermal projects with RES Solar, we're American made, so we can add on another 10%. And then we have a low income apartment complex in Marshfield, so I can add on another. I mean, I could literally go up to 60% of the project can be a federal tax break. Really amazing, to be honest.
Wow.
This is another way to pay for the roof. I mean, you just invest in the solar system and then get the money for the roof.
True.
Cut out a developer. Interesting.
Yeah. I have about 5 more minutes just because I have my daughter in the car and I just got her from the airport and we're going to go eat. So is there anything prioritizing that you want to discuss?
Sounds like everybody got their questions answered. Thanks so much, Matt, for participating tonight. And I'm glad that we got some great information. So we'll be in touch.
Sure. And, if you want me to come back and answer more questions, or feel free to email me and ask more questions.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you,
All right,
Matt.
take
This
care.
was great.
All right. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Tanya, can I ask a follow-up?
Yes.
Just a two-part follow-up. First of all, what is our current installed capacity in Cohasset for, I guess it's just the landfill?
So around 450 kilowatts.
150 kilowatts. And Marshfield has a target of 23 megawatts. So I think that's what I heard.
Yes.
That sounds,
Marshfield is much bigger than Cohasset. The Cohasset municipal load alone would support around 1.75 megawatts. And then if total load for Cohasset peak is 17.5 megawatts.
Is that sort of, I mean, when you're thinking about these projects and sort of are those sort of hard constraints, or is it something as much capacity as you can build, we can sort of monetize somehow?
constrained by the credit capacity on the electricity bill. So
Okay.
you get credits from National Grid, but you need to be able to apply it to someplace.
We can.
We
can't
could do a
can't
community solar project, Tanya, maybe, right?
Yeah, we could do a community solar project if people in town want to buy the power.
But we can sell it out of town too, can't we? Can't we do, what is it, off takers or something? What is it?
So we
No.
can sell the credits to anybody. If we buy too many credits, we can sell it to somebody else who wants the credits. However, they have to have bill capacity.
So what do you think Marshfield's plan is? Because there's no way their municipal load is 20 megawatts.
I don't know. Now, is Marshfield a municipal? Marshfield is a
No,
municipal
they're
light company.
Eversource.
They're Eversource. Okay.
Well, they're looking to participate in community aggregation, right? So I don't know how that figures in.
So I mean, it really sort of begs the question. I mean, what's the limit here and how to think about it? That's a big number. I think you're 23 megawatts. I mean, if you just do the ratio of this town sizes, Marshall is not that much bigger than us.
It's enormous. Yeah.
Yeah, the limit comes down to the Eversource net metering appetite. So first of all, have you capped out the Eversource net metering? Second, if you haven't capped that out, is there enough billings to be able to apply the credit? And it's different in Massachusetts for municipal versus residential. Otherwise, if you build out as much as you can and want to sell it into the wholesale market, you can do that, but it's much more complicated. And you'd need an electric light company or a marketing company to do that. But I think one thing, we've most certainly learned from that is and we'll talk about this, the Inflation Reduction Act has changed the game. We could put now solar on Harborview, for example, affordable housing, that's a 60% off. It used to be 26% off. That's a huge savings.
That's pretty dramatic.
It's huge. I mean, the brick grant we'll talk about, we did not get the brick grant. The brick grant would have given us 75% off, but now we've get 30% off. It's not as rich, but in some cases, if we put it on a landfill, we'd get 40%. If you put it on affordable housing, you could get 50% with the 20% adder, 60%. So the numbers have now changed to really encourage communities to install solar and individuals. And I think Massachusetts, they just passed a clean energy law we should look at in more detail to see what they're looking for, but they're not going to let their limitations on net metering bind the state from being able to implement more solar with the federal credits. Any other questions or thoughts before we move in?
As a newbie here, I find it a little overwhelming how to think about all this, but I'll get there.
Look, I'm an oldie and I still get overwhelmed, so.
Yeah.
So.
But the good news is, Chris, that's why you've joined.
Yeah, well, give me a couple of years.
So Tanya, does this new legislation give us any new ideas in terms of the school roof? Or do you think there would be any more appetite of doing something?
So I think it just comes down to the numbers, right? The problem with the school roofs is if we do it according to the state's timing, we get a 40 to 60% share. So the state will pay for 40% of the costs. The question is, if you install solar, can you make up for the loss of that 40%? And I don't believe, I've heard conflicting views, so I don't know the answer, that whether or not you can recover the cost of the roof replacement as part of the solar installation is up for debate.
I mean, does it hurt to put the RFP out again now that the legislation has changed with caveat to replace the roofs if they need to be replaced?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the new legislation, the money could run out, but it's valid for up to 10 years as long as the targets aren't met. So we're struggling with the fact that the incentives on the federal level were running out, as were the state incentives, which are still running out. But I think it's a question of when can we replace the roofs?
Yeah, Tanya, would it make sense to replace the roofs, a couple years early, rather than wait to, till they're really, and the roof is in really bad shape and then replace it? I mean, they've had problems for years with leaking and trying to do spot fixing of the roof. Maybe it'd make more sense to replace it now as part of the solar installation thing.
Talk about the high school roof?
Yeah.
Isn't there talk about replacing the whole high school?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add.
What?
I thought there was talk about
I didn't know about
replacing the
that.
whole high school.
Yeah.
Lydia, what do you know?
There's a school facility committee that has done, their initial study, and the recommendation, they had the study done of all 3 schools. And the recommendation that has been made by the outside company that did that study is to replace the high school. It's the best solution for that school. I mean, but that obviously doesn't happen quickly, and that needs to be, socialized, and there needs to be an override for that to happen. Like, that's a huge project. But it does become a cost benefit and, a moment of cost benefit analysis. Like, you don't necessarily replace, we have to maintain the school, but I don't see replacing the whole high school roof. I guess depends on timing. I think the other schools, though, that were deemed in good shape and things can be fixed, like those would be potential projects. Those will have roofs replaced, and we'll continue to use those buildings. But the high school, it feels to me like the school facilities committee, which is separate than school committee, is the recommendation from them is to build a new school. So that's what I know right now.
So that has prevented us from even looking at solar options for the high school, even at the parking carport level.
Tanya, may I say one more thing?
Yes.
Last night at our meeting, we were shown the proposal for a different bus parking area by Deer Hill. And I'm just curious, so kind of like when you curve around the Deer Hill parking lot, the lawn part of the hill, it sounds like a study's going to be done to see if that's a viable place and we can go ahead and make a parking spot. So I'm wondering if that would be an opportunity to circle back to, like maybe solar canopies and something there.
Yes, I think definitely. If there's going to be a bus depot,
Yeah.
we would definitely want to think about carports.
Yeah.
And if it's not in front of the schools, maybe the aesthetics won't be as offensive.
Well, that's a thing. It's not going to be blocking an entrance, and it would be a side. So, and I think that also like the looks and aesthetics have just continued to get better as time goes by. We were at a zoo in Florida over spring break, and we were under a little solar carport. And I was like, this is adorable and so aesthetically pleasing. Like this would fit in like a Cohasset setting. My thoughts. That's not the vote of anyone else on the committee, but it does change. I mean, things get better and prettier over time when it comes to that stuff. So who knows?
Well, and our perception changes. Like we get the first time you saw a solar canopy, you're like, what is this? And then you're like, oh, what a great idea. So
Yeah, I mean,
there's
I already
two
liked
things
them.
going
I
on.
already voted for them, but but
We're not a committee.
now I know.
But I think the question's a good one with the new legislation, with 2 years behind us on when we did the last RFP, 2 years closer to roof replacement and an extension on the investment tax credit. Doesn't make sense to put out an RFP for the school roofs. And I think it only does if we know when they're going to be replaced. But we can also put out an RFP to include the replacement.
And this would be on the 2 school, Deer Hill and Osgood, Tanya?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And we did receive some pretty significant savings. I mean, the savings we were looking at under the bid, which I don't think is valid anymore, given the time that's gone by. But the amount of savings we're looking at was around 75,000 a year for both of them. So 75,000 a year, you know, how much does a roof, how much do the roofs cost to replace? I think they could come close to paying for the roof replacement. But that doesn't change the question of, do you take those savings for some other purpose or do you spend it on the roof?
Sounds like a negotiation.
It's definitely a capital expenditure decision.
Right, so want a little bit for energy projects, and here we can help fund the roof as well, a portion of it.
Right, and again, I think a key issue is, can you get the cost of the roofs covered by an ITC? Or is it separate? And I have heard different viewpoints on that. Okay, well, I think a lot of these topics will have another opportunity to discuss. So if we're okay, I'd like to move to the next topic. And this is a
Yep.
committee member check-in. We now have Chris, myself, and Pat have been renewed, and Chris is on board. I just want to make sure everybody who's new or renewed has gotten sworn in by the clerk. Chris, I assume you have.
Yeah, I got sworn in and I finished my ethics training. I think I'm up to date on all that stuff.
Excellent. And Pat, you too?
For my ethics training, so I'll go down and get sworn in.
Excellent. And what about everybody else? Because the ethics training was something else I want to check in on. You need to do that every 2 years.
Good.
I have not. So Tanya, you're saying we have to be sworn in again?
No, you don't. Just Pat and myself
Okay.
and Chris. And we have for this year.
Okay.
But everybody should look at their ethics training and make sure that they're up to date. Nobody checks you until it's time to swear in. So I'd prefer to keep everybody up to date. And once you take your ethics training, you get a certificate, and then you can send that to the clerk for file.
Did that too. I'm considering framing it, but currently it's in a file folder.
And you can frame it as well, Chris. All right.
Star
Very good.
achievement.
Anything else from the committee members? Questions? Okay, National Grid Fleet Assessment Update. I realized we haven't been checking in on this. Has there been any progress?
I'm sorry, my internet keeps cutting out. Could you repeat that?
Sure, the National Grid Fleet Assessment. So National Grid offered to do a fleet assessment for the town. And I don't know, Josh, are you and Mike the leads on that?
That wasn't my responsibility as far as I know. There was one, you did introduce us to the lady out in Texas or Arizona. She canceled that meeting. But besides that, and we weren't in touch, I was never in touch with anybody from National Grid in this assessment.
Okay,
I'm not sure who.
I think maybe
So
Michelle had that contact on that one.
Yeah.
I think it was Michelle.
all right. Let's make it an action item for Michelle to give us an update on the National Grid Fleet Assessment.
Also the carbon footprint. Didn't we, was Shell also point on that one as well?
Yes.
Getting an assessment done on that?
Let's also check in with Michelle on what's going on with the grant to hire somebody to do a carbon footprint assessment. Okay, electric vehicle charging stations. Before this call, Michelle indicated, and it was confirmed by Matt, that ChargePoint has an additional fee for municipalities that want to start charging using the charging stations. Michelle is going to find out more about that information. But I wonder if conversation in concept. Oh, did I freeze out?
Yeah, you broke up. a little
Yeah,
bit.
we lost you for a few seconds there.
Okay, so I'm wondering if we can have a conversation in concept and make a recommendation conceptually about how we should charge. So I'm
Tanya,
gonna
I got
open
a
it to
thought about
discussion.
that.
Yes, Steve.
Tanya, I'd like to share a thought about the level 3 chargers. As we discussed last time, level 3 chargers are very expensive. They cost anywhere from 5 times or maybe even up to 10 times the cost of a level 2 charger. However, with a level 3 charger, you can charge up maybe a typical EV in half an hour, get a full charge for your car. Whereas with a level 2, it might take 10 hours. Now that's a 20-to-1 ratio there. So as far as charging capacity goes, a single level 3 charger would be like having 20 level 2 chargers. So even though it may cost 5 times more, you're getting 20 times the service. So I'm making the argument that it might be worth the money if it's feasible to put in 1 or 2 level 3 chargers in Cohasset. And I would say that absolutely we should charge for level 3 charging, for fast charging. But maybe we would want to consider keeping some of the, have a different charging rate per kilowatt hour for the level 3 versus level 2. Maybe keeping the level 2s free and only charging on level 3 chargers. Keep level 2 free or a modest charge and sock it to them on the level 3 chargers. So I think that's something we ought to consider.
Yeah, just for
So my feeling is that with the Inflation Reduction Act or actually the Build Back Better or whatever, that there's going to be a big push for level 3, and people are really going to not be looking for, or there's going to be a lot of competition. And so I still wonder whether there can be some sort of leasing agreement or something where somebody else shoulders the burden for keeping updated and things like that. I feel like, whether that can happen, that we have some sort of, agreement where somebody will build them and benefit by them, and we just give the space. So I think the technology is going to change so fast, and I think these are going to be really anachronistic in a very short time. I'm really sorry to say that, but I think that's the case.
Well, I did do a little bit of reading about the charging systems, and the possibilities are very open. I mean, the town can own the chargers themselves and be responsible for the maintenance, and just contracts a charge point for handling the data management part of it, or you can let the charge point or another third party own the chargers and be responsible for the maintenance and share the revenue from them, or there's any other combination of that sort of thing. So it's really wide open. The one thing I did find out that I was a little bit confused about last time is that the hardware goes with the network company, so you can't. We have charge point chargers, so we can't go to Electrify America or a different charging network without hardware. We're stuck with charge point with the hardware we have. We could consider going to a different network, but we probably wouldn't want to do that unless there was a huge financial advantage for doing that. That's why I was asking Matt about that sort of thing. I was wondering if he considered other networks, and so he did have one Siemens, I guess, charging port that he wasn't terribly happy with. But it sounds like we would probably want to stick with ChargePoint, but we could have any kind of arrangement with them. I was hoping to get more information, but to talk to them, you have to give them your account number and password and whatnot. So that would be something I guess Michelle would have to do.
Can I ask a question? Just sort of, what is our sort of goal? I mean, what are we really trying to accomplish for the citizens of Cohasset and for the town? What would we like to see? Whoever does it, what are we trying to do?
Well, I think initially we were leveraging the grant money in order to make these available and to incentivize people.
You froze, Pat.
To move off combustion engines.
Yeah, I mean, to move up, basically, and adopt. And part of the grant money stipulated that you had to allow them to be free for some period of time. So I think our goal now is partly, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, partly is to at least be able to get some money to offset the usage for right now, and basically have that paid for by the people that are utilizing the chargers. And also, we now need to replace the initial chargers that we got behind Town Hall, which were servicing not only the town EVs, but citizens could come in and use those chargers for free. Those are now defunct and now need to be replaced. So now we're thinking, whatever we do,
We're having a hard internet night tonight.
Chris, can I posit a one option to answer to that question?
Yeah.
And very simply put, I think it gets confusing real fast, but on the base level, serving the citizens of Cohasset, the goal is to be sure the program is sustainable. There's nothing worse for a driver of an EV as a broken charger, because it's on the map and then you can't use it and you're stuck. And I think it would be a disservice to the town if we had, these 10, 12 chargers, and then in a couple of years we only had 4. So on a base level, and again, I think there's a lot of questions about budgeting and about all these other things, but on a base level, being able to figure out a way to maintain the program as it exists as a service to the community, I think would be kind of the one alpha goal, broadly speaking, if I could just, throw that out there.
Mhm. And do we, I think Debbie was getting at this. We did have an advantage in that we had grant funds, so we were in a unique position to get those grant funds and do something. But now that it doesn't sound like maybe those grant funds are available anymore. And now what advantage do we have other that's different than a sort of market participant? If there's demand for this, there should be a market for somebody interested in putting these in. And then the question is, what are the economics, and are the economics such that we have to figure out a way to give them a free place, a free lease, or something like that? But I guess I would just posit that taking on the management of this program, may not be necessary if there's a market mechanism out there to get it done for us.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, we've got the current charging stations, which are now costing the town money. And then you have the replacement charging stations, because they're going to very quickly become out of date and defunct. So the first question facing us is, what should we charge for the current stations? I think at a minimum, we should cover the variable costs. I think we should also create incentives so that people don't just sit there not charging.
Yeah.
And then the third would be, do we, in addition to that, want to cover fixed cost of replacement?
Oh, would it make
Connie, I
sense
think
to
I'd
have
like-
sort of a multi-phase strategy? So that right now we cover the cost and we just, leave it at that, and we don't look at replacement, but we look at a different time horizon and say, okay, we're going to keep this going for a given period of time at this rate. We're not going to look at replacement, factoring that in, but we're going to research options, because I really think we really don't want to be in the business of doing this down the road. And I really think that there's going to be so many changes that they're going to be obsolete just from a demand point of view. So, but I think the fact that we have the space, the place for them, and once again, maybe that's not desired either, because people may want to go where there's a, food or gas, or not gas, but other facilities. So anyway, I just think that we should maybe split this up and cover our costs for right now, and leave the depreciation and the replacement aside from that, and look at maybe a different strategy for handling that.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk to ChargePoint, and have a discussion with them as to what kind of arrangement we can make with them. They're
Can
the
I
key
just
player
say
in this.
something though? Can I just say something that was really interesting? I invested in ChargePoint. And I thought, because they were so involved and they had such a presence, and the stock is doing terribly. It's never caught on. And so I was trying to research why, and Jim Cramer and some people were basically saying it's not making any money. You can't have that kind of a thing. So I think also we have to look at, if we're going to throw our lot with them, we have to look at their longer term viability. So just tossing it out there. And
So
who
you're
knows?
thinking that, or Debbie, you're suggesting that maybe when the current charge point chargers have to be replaced, like the two at the town hall, that we replace them with a different networks hardware? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying a long-term strategy where maybe we don't replace them, but we find, it might be a different strategy altogether, that somebody comes in, installs them and
Yeah,
manages
this
them.
is what
And
Chris was saying, what he was suggesting.
yeah, that's what I've been trying to say.
Debbie started that, actually built off of Debbie's point on that one. One of the things that, just what Tanya reminded us of, we do have a here and now decision to make. And sort of what do we, and I would just sort of throw out there that we come up with some fee. Because a really very interesting question is, what demand is there once you put a fee against it? And if we come up with whatever we decide on, there's a framework on how to establish the fee, get that in as soon as we can, and then we have some time to learn before the things crap out, whether we actually can, whether there's demand for something. And Steve, I think to your point, I think it could be that level 2 chargers, there is no demand for level 2, but for people who come to Cohasset, an electric vehicle, level 3s are the ones that are really going to be in demand. They're not going to sit around for, a couple, a little bit of a charge, but a level 3 would be something that might be useful. And that's what I imagine the market is going to figure out.
Correct.
Because we're not the only small town. And there's going to be a company out there that's going to be testing this and figure out, okay, what is the appropriate level of charge, or where, and at what fee structure.
Yeah, if you take a long trip with an EV, now it's a bit of a problem finding fast chargers. There aren't that many. There's a gazillion level 2 chargers, but level 3s, if you're going on a long trip and you haven't reached your final destination, you're just on the way. Finding a level 3 charger is sometimes not that easy.
Yeah, so I'd just like this to throw out for discussion, just pick up on Tanya. Tanya sort of laid out 3 options. And, I would, propose as a straw dog that we say variable cost plus an incentive not to idle. And let's just get that in there and see what happens.
I agree. I think the one thing we need to think about is if there's an additional cost to be able to do the charging, is that a variable cost or is that a fixed cost? Because that's something we should also be able to recover or try to.
I don't understand what you're asking, Tanya.
So ChargePoint will charge us an additional fee if we choose to start charging the users.
Right.
I don't know if they charge per kilowatt hour or if they charge a fixed price.
Oh, they would charge, you pay by the kilowatt hour, of course, the amount of energy you get.
No, is that, I'm saying
software?
ChargePoint has an additional fee
Yeah.
once a community converts from free to charging.
Tanya, I'd imagine it's probably based on the usage because they've got, merchant fees and they've got interchange fees and all that sort of thing. So if we're billing 16 cents, we may only be getting, 11 cents, something like that on a kilowatt hour. So that's what I would imagine it would be, the cut that they're
If it's a
taking.
variable cost, easy. Like Chris, I like straw dog, Chris. So your straw dog, which is cover the variable cost plus a fee to disincentivize just idling. And to the extent that there's a ChargePoint fee, that's a fixed price, put in an adder, and we can start with, I don't know, some percent.
Tanya, I'd like to correct a misconception about the usage of the charging stations in Cohasset. I don't think anybody is, other than the town vehicles, are leaving their vehicles overnight at the charging stations. It's only the town that's doing that. I frequently use the charging stations in town here, and I often go there at night to see what situation is. I don't think that, and in the data, when you see a vehicle that's not charging and is connected up, that's a town. That's one of the 3 town EVs.
Yeah, according to the data, and maybe this is because of the town EVs, but yeah, it's 2.5 hours of charge time and 4 hours of idle time for the average session.
And Steve, you're saying
That's
that
wacky.
most of that 4 hours is from town vehicles.
Sorry, Chris, I didn't understand your question.
Well, well, I'd say you said most of the vast majority of the idle time is town vehicles.
Right.
And if the data says that it's all town vehicles, then we don't really have a problem to solve, do we? I mean,
Right. No, there's no problem with, currently, there's no problem with availability or with cars sitting there and hogging the charging ports without, without charging. I don't, that's a non-problem at the moment. It could, if we, as more EVs get more popular in town here and the charging stations are used more, then it might become a problem. But right now, it's not a problem.
so if it's not a problem, we can really simplify it. And if it's not a problem, and in fact, the software required to charge is on a variable basis, then this is really simple. Let's get in let's figure out what the variable cost is, add a little bit of a buffer, 10% or something, and then and get on with it, and as fast as we can. Let's see what happens. Super simple.
Can I throw one just random wrench in there? If we're billing, how does that affect town vehicles? I'm wondering if, how much then would the town be paying ChargePoint to manage, in management of the fee structure so that town can charge itself for charging the vehicles? Does that make any sense? I mean, that may be a couple $100, a month. So there may be like in addition to the money we're not making, there may be a hidden cost that we're not quite calculating yet. That's if ChargePoint doesn't allow us, if they allow us to have, free accounts, that's one thing. But if we're charging and then the town has to be billed, then we may be just giving them money for no reason.
Yeah, interesting.
Well,
No,
we could always make those dedicated chargers though for the town vehicles. I mean, there's no reason probably that you couldn't. And the other thing too is, it's probably not very hard to change the pricing. I mean, if the price of electricity goes up really fast, I mean, basically you get an app on your phone that tells you what the current rate is. So you don't have to make it fixed for that long a period either. And so my feeling is that I think we should definitely have a fee for idle time. And I think we should have a fee for, for the charge time, and maybe just a dedicated, some dedicated chargers for just the town vehicles that can't be activated by the public. And that's basically how it happens.
Hey,
I mean,
Debbie,
actually, the down at town hall, they were just running an extension cord out for one of the cars. So I mean, maybe it's just left as, that if you're going to use it, you just plug in your extension cord, and there isn't even a charger there. I mean, and you just do it that way. Of course, that's a level 1, which is a lot slower charging, but but that's a possibility too.
So Debbie, just want to query you on the idle time question. And if Steve's right, and really nobody idles except for the town, it just strikes me it just is one more thing to communicate that could be confusing if we're communicating a penalty that we really doesn't need to exist. How are you thinking about that?
Well, either, I mean, as maybe we skip it for now, I mean, and institute it if and when it becomes a problem. So maybe we just.
Let me suggest that if we get a level 3 charger, then we very definitely have to have a charge for idle time on that, because somebody will pull up to it, and go in the library and read a book for an hour, and half an hour will be charging, and half an hour will be idle time. So we would have to have the charge if we have a level 3, but with level 2 chargers, I don't really think it's much of a problem at the moment. So I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you
So-
can do
Just
it
wanted to
quickly if you
share,
want to, but,
Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say Hingham is installing the first, I think, level 3 charger on the South Shore. And for 2 ports with the incentives, I think they're at like $180,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an extensive project where it has a dedicated transformer and there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into it.
but remember, you're getting 20 times the charging capacity.
Yeah.
So what's the cost of 20 level 2 chargers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also
100,000?
would. Oh,
100,000. Okay, so you're still paying a premium.
yeah,
And I
that
think
charge
the whole industry, you're not going to have public chargers. The whole industry is moving towards charging at home. I mean, you'll have, probably level 3 chargers in certain public spaces, but I think a majority of the charging is going to be done at the household.
Oh, yeah,
That's
of course. That's the way it
industry's
is now, and that's the way it'll be in the future. But we're thinking about, people that can't do that, apartment houses and so forth, that
Yeah.
people without garages or whatever. So there's going to be a lot of people that will not be able to charge at home. And also visitors coming in and other situations where you can't charge at home. So, yeah, but right now, and even in the future, most charging will be done at home. That's true.
I think Pat had done some research, and the one thing she has found, and we also heard this from Matt, which is that they are doing a $10 per hour charge for idling. Is there any reason we just wouldn't toss that in?
The only thing I would posit is it's just a different, it's another communication thing that can get confused. Keep it simple. But I mean, I don't feel strongly about that, Tanya. If you think that's what we should do, I'm completely okay with it. I was just trying
Let me
to
ask you,
push towards simplification.
I totally agree with that, Chris, and I appreciate that. But Debbie, when you look at a charge point set of, if it has information on where the next charge point is, it also includes whether or not there's a charge.
Yeah,
Kilowatt
remember I
hour, does
sent
it
you,
include if there's
you
an
remember I
idling
sent
charge?
you that spreadsheet about all the chargers around, and you got that, right? My spreadsheet.
Yes.
Yeah. And so some do have, penalties and things like that. But when you go to them and you have to use your phone to activate I mean, everybody, that's what you do. And on your phone, it will tell you what the going rate is, and also if there is a penalty. So you can change that in a heartbeat. So basically, most of my findings, I did a analysis of all the charging stations within about 10 miles and sent it to Tanya. And basically, a lot were free. A lot were set up like ours. A lot were free. There were very few that had penalties. And the ones that had a charge, it ranged from like 18 cents to 35 cents for the actual charge. And I think only 1 or 2 had idling idling charges.
Tesla
But the
superchargers
communication
charge you
occurs on
for
your phone.
idling. Oh, sorry, Tanya.
No, that's all right. I was just saying, Debbie, the communication, if there is this idling charge, it shows up on your phone when you go to the charge point.
Yes. So there's there's nothing, about educating the consumer about it really, because it's all, you get all the information before you go there, and you can see exactly what the policies are. So they'll say, for example, some of them say you can stay for 2 hours afterwards, and then the charges kick in. So there was a number of different options, but for the most part, they're free on the South Shore at level 2. and there were no idling charges. So.
So I guess the next question is, what is our variable cost? And does it change on a monthly basis? Does it change on a quarterly basis? Do we need to set the charge on a regular basis based on what just occurred?
I think that's a choice if we want to. I mean, the variable costs basically are the cost of electricity, right? And then the other is the charge that ChargePoint's going to charge us, which we don't know fixed or variable. So we probably would want to review it, pay it to somewhat to the current cost of electricity. I heard it's going to, they're talking about it going up this winter substantially. I don't know, but so I think whatever we choose now, maybe we say we want to peg it to, we review it every, I don't know, 3 months or something, and then change it. And as I said, I can't see it would be any difficulty to do it because it's all, you're told on your phone what it is.
Doesn't National Grid change their prices twice a year?
They
Or
might,
more
but I
often than
don't
that?
know, Steve, if the rate for the vehicle charging is the town's rate. Or if
Well,
it's a
doesn't it go on,
use
it
rate.
goes on the town's bill. Isn't that just a charge for electricity on the town's bill or not?
I don't know what rate it is. I don't know if it's a G1, G2, or G3.
Maybe
Oh, I
Charlie
see.
can
Okay.
answer. They might be able to answer some of these questions, right? I'm sure they do this at other towns. And we just say, like Chris said, we just add 10% onto the total of the 12 cents plus whatever they charge and add 10%. And if it goes up,
I mean, Josh, you have the data.
yeah,
Can you tell how the average rate has changed from month to month?
it doesn't show that. I can share my screen if you guys want to take a look at it real quick, but
Yep.
it just says estimated cost. It doesn't say. Yeah, I'll share my screen. One sec.
I think if they have an estimated cost and a total kilowatt
Actually-
hours, we can calculate the average.
Well, I think
I can't share my screen. It's disabled.
the charges would just be load behind the meter at either of the buildings, whether it's the town hall or the library. So whatever the rates are at those meters is what the charging would be. I don't think it would be sub-metered at the charger.
That because we're using the level 2 and it's coming off of the building,
Exactly. It's just another load on that building behind that meter
whatever the
for
building is.
exactly. I don't know about the ones in the public lot, if those have a separate meter that are just specific to the charge point chargers. That would be maybe a separate car charging rate, but the ones on the library and town hall would definitely just be another load on that those buildings.
Do we have a charge point rep?
Yeah, Michelle would probably know.
I wonder if we could just have ChargePoint rep join us at a meeting and brief us on what the options, the possibilities are. We're kind of groping in the dark here.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's do that. Let's have Michelle do a little bit more research on what the costs are to convert to a charging mode. Do we feel comfortable making a conceptual vote that we would recommend a fee that covers at a minimum variable cost plus X%?
I feel like you gotta account for the maintenance, the future maintenance, because if you have, the Siemens chargers that have already gone down. I mean, these chargers have been up for a couple of years already. I hate to see the program, lose chargers, and then is the town going to pony up the unsubsidized cost of the chargers, which is a lot more than obviously what we paid for them initially. I think it's going to be a tough sell to ask for, $25,000-$30,000 to replace chargers.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think we ought to find out what ChargePoint would charge us for a maintenance contract and include that in our charges.
I just want to throw out there that I think there's still an open question is that once we start charging, whether people are going to want to use a level 2 charger. I mean, how much use are we going to get? Maybe we
I think Chris originally said maybe what we do, his straw dog was start charging the variable cost and see what happens to demand.
And then I mean, we can change. And then once we learn more about the cost and so on, we're making a decision for as long of the time until we make another decision. All right. I mean, this is not a permanent thing. This is, as we're learning, we can change.
Yeah, I think we got to keep it flexible initially. I like the idea of starting off with, with just charging just a fee to recoup the variable cost. And then we'll see how that goes and what the usage trend is, whether people stop using them altogether or not. And then we can, in the future, we'll add in fixed costs and replacement costs.
I think if you add in the replacement costs, what you would have to charge based on the amount of charging we're using, it would be exorbitant, I think. If you
well, I'm sure hoping the technology is going to improve where these things don't break down every couple of years. I don't see why they can't make them more rugged.
Also, just so you know, the Inflation Reduction Act has investment tax credits, upfront payments to offset the cost of the chargers.
And that includes replacing them, I would assume.
No, the cost of replacement would be offset by the investment tax credit in the Inflation Reduction Act.
Okay, that's what I meant. Yes.
Tanya, is that a deal? Can the municipalities realize that tax credit?
That's the same thing through the direct payment.
Yeah, same. Okay. I do think that, we have a lot of unanswered questions here. I think that we should still sort of go full speed ahead and figure out sort of, what does maintenance look like? How much does it cost? What are warranty, buying like extended warranty look like? And do the analysis and then test Debbie's hypothesis that you add all that in, divide by the amount of usage, and you're just like in the stratosphere with the expense. And let's run the numbers, get the data and run the numbers and see what that looks like.
I think we definitely need to do that. The question, though, that Chris, you raised, and I think we should discuss, is we could have paralysis by analysis. Yeah. Do we feel comfortable at this point taking a vote and recommending to the select board that they start charging at least the cost of electricity or the cost of electricity plus 10%?
I would feel comfortable doing that.
Yes, I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah.
You don't want to talk to ChargePoint first and just see what options there are, what their charges are, or anything like that?
Well, I think we ought to talk to ChargePoint. Yes, we ought to, but I don't think we need them to make this decision. Regardless of what they tell us, we can ask them to charge a fee that would cover the cost of the electricity.
Josh, I think it's a good idea to talk to them. Just at some point, I feel comfortable taking this vote, knowing that we can change our minds. But I think we take a vote, make a decision, and continue to gather data. And then as better information comes along, we sort of can adjust the decision.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And remember too, we have this other charge from ChargePoint. Once we
Yeah.
start charging.
That's what I was saying. Like,
Yeah, I
we
think
need,
that's gotta be covered too.
we need them to like tell us how to even start charging, right? So we need to have a conversation with them to begin charging anyway, is all I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Josh, very
Good point, Josh.
We do, but the question is, do we wait for them to come before the committee? Or can this committee give a conceptual vote, which is that we
Down for that.
make
Let's
a
do it.
recommendation at this time to start charging for the variable cost plus the cost to convert to a charging fee.
I think we should, can we put it off one more month and ask Michelle to find what that fee is, and then we can, pull that into our cost. So I feel like one more month to find out what that fee's gonna be. I mean, I don't think we should get into all the other options with them, but at least just the fee to go to charge, to charge for charging. Should be definitely included. And
Okay.
either we make a generalized thing, but if it's really off the charts, we have to think about that too.
All right, Josh, what did it cost us last month?
Well, if it was, so you can kind of play with the cost per price per kilowatts, 12 cents, it was $640. I don't know if it was 12 cents or not. You can go in here and change it.
I mean, I feel like we've been kind of kicking this down the road like 3 or 4 months now. I'm fine with giving Michelle the go ahead to pursue, adding the charges for the cost of electricity and whatever charge point's going to charge. And then, just so we start collecting data. Like, I hate waiting another month to, make another decision. I feel like we're just kind of, does that make sense?
Do we have to ask the select board if they're okay on this or not?
We make the recommendation to the select board.
But I think
So
we're
we-
not going to look very professional if we don't know whether it is a fixed cost or a variable cost from ChargePoint. And, if it's a fixed cost, then how do you assign that across, so we'd have to really, I think we still need to give it, we need to find out about that fee.
I can call them
Before we
tomorrow if you want to wait, unless you want to have Michelle track it down, but there's a contact me on the website. I can try to track that down and just respond via email. But
we can't make a decision though without meeting, right?
Well, what if we have a meeting focused only on this topic in 2 weeks?
I don't think we need someone from ChargePoint and Michelle to have a productive meeting. If we don't have ChargePoint, I think it's, just the same as we're doing tonight.
Okay, so subject to having Michelle and ChargePoint either in advance or at the meeting. How
I
do
would be
people
able to
feel
make a
about
decision
having a
then.
meeting in 2 weeks?
Actually, maybe Michelle or perhaps Josh and Michelle can talk to ChargePoint and get the information we need, and so we don't have to meet as a committee to do this. I don't know. I don't object. I'm just trying to think of a more efficient way of doing it.
Yeah, could we do, I'm trying to think of the same thing, Steve. Could we simply vote that we should at a minimum cover the variable electricity cost plus account for the cost that enable us to charge. And that may come in the form of a pure variable or a fixed cost that we need to allocate in some way. And just leave it at that, and then we can figure out the details once we get charge points.
I'm comfortable
charging.
with that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I agree with
that way, Tanya, it sounds like you want to bring something to the select board instead of get a move on. Maybe that's the way to give us the wiggle room.
Yes, and I think if this group is comfortable with that vote conceptually, we can then do the calculation.
I'm conceptually okay with it.
So Corey, are you there? How would that land on you for us to come in with that kind of proposal?
Yeah, I'm still here. So as we're thinking about this, I wonder if a simpler version would just be to recommend that we match rates with a like town somewhere else. And, we can kind of figure out, to Chris's point, the details behind it. You just say, okay, town X is doing this, let's just do that for now. And then as you figure out all the other details, that way you don't get into that complication of, well, we chose this rate because of X, Y, Z, and there's unanswered questions. There are unanswered questions, but there is a standard here that other towns have found. So let's just match the standard. I don't think we can, it doesn't sound like we can recoup capital costs. Doesn't really sound like we have a great handle on even our variable costs, but we at least have a market. There's a line in the sand somewhere that the market says, okay, other towns have done this. Let's just do that until we know more. That would just be my recommendation, I guess.
So I
Debbie,
think
is there
what
a
we heard
town around
earlier,
here-
Corey,
What?
was
I was just gonna ask
There's a
Debbie whether
range.
there's a town around here that's been charging that we can just do what they do.
Well, it's all on the spreadsheet that I
Right,
did.
and so is
which-
there a town, you said that most of them were not charging, so is there a town that
let
is
me see if
charging?
I can-
Yes. I mean,
Huh? Let me see if
you just
I'll have to
kind of
go.
dartboard it almost, Situate or, Hanover or somebody in the area.
Wait a second. No, that's not it. I thought I saved it on my tabs here. So I can go into my Google Docs and find it if you want, and because that really had it on there. So while I'm looking for it, if you
And the other option would be to just make a recommendation to allow town hall, the town manager to set the rate. I mean, the select board could, the vote could be to hand off the authority for the rate setting to the town manager. I mean, that would be within our policy making thing. So this could be something that, we just say, yeah, the select board, you recommend that to the select board that we enable the town manager to figure out the rate with the goals of a rate that, covers variable costs. And that could be enough of a vote too.
so Tanya, can you have me share my screen?
you should be able to share.
No, it's been
Dave
disabled.
writes to everybody,
It's
all
been-
panelists.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I wasn't able to share.
Debbie, can you share?
Let me see. Okay. Yeah, no, it's not letting me go on here. Okay, share screen, but I don't know. I don't know about you guys, but this new Zoom is kind of crazy. I don't know. Share screen, but it doesn't seem to be letting me.
Oh, I was able to do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ooh, somebody could?
Yeah, I could do it. If you just, you see the share screen button, that green one down the
Yep,
bottom?
I hit that. Yeah,
Then you pick
yeah.
the screen you want to share, like your desktop,
yep.
double click that.
But the only thing it's showing is this. Wait a second. Let's see. Okay. No, it's,
You have to click
sorry.
2 places.
All right, but
You
I'll,
click,
I,
share, the green thing at the bottom, and then you have to click share again a second time on the window that pops up.
right, but that's not the window that I want. It's just back on the
Well,
Zoom.
click on
screen.
it anyways.
Well, all right, let me try, but you know what, I can read it to you. Okay, so, you know, I can let you know, like, for
Okay, we
example,
see it.
That's Tanya's. but, yeah.
Oh, it's Tanya.
oh, okay. All right, so Tanya's got it for you. Okay.
28 cents. All right.
Oh, no.
Marshfield is charging 28 cents. Okay.
There you go. It's on society. They made a decision. They've got a matrix, I'm sure. So
Okay.
And that's kind of in the range there. We see that Norwell is charging 26 cents and Weymouth is charging 49. Hanover is 20.
the Weymouth one looks like a Walgreens. It may not be a municipal charger because that rate's also,
Oh,
way
yeah,
off
yeah,
the
right.
map, as is the Optera Energy. So I mean, they're all in, to your point, Steve, they're all in the 20s range outside of the ones that are out of there.
So as you can see, there's hardly anybody that's got a penalty. The Braintree Electric Light has $6 an hour with a 30-minute grace period. So, but that's really one of the only ones I found that had a penalty. So,
So do we just want to say 25 cents per kilowatt hour?
That sounds
Direction.
reasonable to me.
so I don't know. I just want to be
I
able
mean,
to make sure.
residential rates are around 22 to 25 cents. So for the people in town, the cost of the next best alternative is their residential rate.
So Tanya, you're saying to suggest that we probably would, I mean, I'm not sure what the charge point or additional charge point variable charges are, but we just let that one slide for now.
I'm nervous about that.
You know,
And our average cost that they estimate, we don't know, is 12 cents.
Anya, could you switch to the next page? Isn't there 2 pages?
I only have, let's see, sheet 1. I don't see a sheet 2.
Okay, maybe there isn't. Okay. I guess that's it. So I will
Okay.
say one of the things that I really was amazed at was at this point how few there really are on the South Shore. I mean, I looked at all my different apps, and that's where I got all this stuff. And there's just there's not a lot of charging on the South Shore.
you know,
Now, Braintree is the only level 3 that I know of, which is a Tesla charger, and there's also a CHMAO at the Braintree Mall, but I didn't put those on because that's seemed like irrelevant to this discussion. But you know, not a lot of charging capacity.
I mean, for you that drive electric vehicles, is 30 cents a kilowatt hour, is that a deterrent to go to a charger? If it's 35, I mean, how do you feel going to these charge stations? Does the price deter you at all?
Well, don't forget, like if you've charged 30 cents a kilowatt hour, but in an hour, you're only getting 15 miles of charging.
Mhm.
So, it's, I don't know. I guess it wouldn't be that.
If I was in Cohasset and my home charger is there at 25 cents, I'm not going to go plug in for 30 cents.
Right.
Right.
And that's my personal feeling as well as, having two EVs. But then it gets back to, the beginning, which is Chris's original question, which was, kind of what's the policy goal here? Is it to reduce emissions? Is it to be, budget neutral? Is it to support, economic development downtown? There's a lot of other things, and those are the macro level decision about what the policy goal is will set, the rubric for how you guys can talk about how you finance it. Yeah. So
It doesn't, right? Because if the demand goes to nothing, once we start charging, and I think that's
then
Chris's
we've
point,
accomplished
which is
nothing.
we don't know. So do people feel comfortable recommending we start with the 20 cents per kilowatt hour and see what happens?
Did you say 20 cents, Tanya?
20 cents, which is what Hanover Pediatrics charges. It's the
Okay.
lowest on
case-
our fees.
Which is,
And the case we make for that is this is, we are going to be doing a demand analysis based on that to see, to see what our usage is, and to see what the market can take, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's our justification because we don't have other facts behind us. So it's really just testing the market and seeing what kind of usage we get and if it falls off. And maybe incrementally we could try to increase it, if and see if demand holds.
Yes. And this
Yeah, I
is
feel-
subject to not getting killed on the charge point charge.
Yeah, I feel like we got to start somewhere. We got to just, come up with a price and then look at the data in a couple months and adjust.
So,
So-
Josh, can you run, like 20 cents? I can't think about it right now. What 20 cents would generate on our monthly consumption this month?
Sure.
can I just sort of just one thought that I wonder if I'm, well, let me ask, is it possible, Tanya, that the town's electrical kilowatt hour charge is 20 cents or less? I mean, I'm not familiar with
So
if
the-
residential or 25, would the town pay some?
the town would pay less.
Town would pay less.
The
And
20
cents is
$1,000.
20 cents is a good guess. Oh, sorry, Josh.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, I was just saying, at 20 cents, it's $1,000 a month.
So that's really pretty substantial then. That
Yeah,
should
but
really-
we're not going to be charging for the 3 town vehicles, right? So you have to take
Right.
off whatever they would
I think
be.
that should be in our motion, not to charge for the 3 town vehicles. Have dedicated chargers for them or something. Or the extension cord thing or whatever.
Well, for the town vehicle, I think it can be handled in charge point account,
So maybe I could, can I make a motion then?
Yes.
All right. So I move that we initially charge 20 cents a kilowatt hour for charging I think we're not gonna charge a penalty, right? So it's just a 20-cent charge, and town vehicles will be exempt from that. And we will analyze what kind of demand, that we have in 2 months. And then reassess.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have, this motion does not account for the charge point additional charges, and I just want to make sure we're all okay with that. And that's the
And I
intent.
think $1,000 should definitely cover. I mean, the cost of electricity this month was 600, right? So that's a $400 difference
Okay,
if it's 20 cents, right?
But
Okay.
I'd say subject to the fee covering the charge point charge. We can amend the motion. And if we do that, then it turns out that once we find out what the charge is, overwhelms what we would get, we can not go
Are you
forward.
looking
We
to
need to,
collect 20
we
cents or
need to
charge
fire
20
them
cents?
if it's more than $400. If it's more than $400, I mean, we need to fire them. Charge point, if that's their fee.
I know, but we don't know what their fee is, Debbie.
I know, I'm
Could you-
just saying that. I'm just
Could you set it
saying
up
that,
so that it's collecting 20 cents after fees are paid?
I like that.
So once we talk with the charge point, set it up, we say we want to set it up so that after fees are paid, the town collects 20 cents per kilowatt hour on the charging stations.
I don't know, then that might drive us up to 30 cents
Right.
or whatever. And I think, don't we want to do a little demand analysis? I don't think we want to, become known as so expensive that people never look at it again.
But we have to cover our costs, Debbie.
I get, well,
I think that's our objective.
Well, and I mean, you could think about it that right now we're not recovering any expense. And that this is truly what we're doing for the next couple of months is truly just a demand test. And the demand test is going to cost us some money. So we maybe I'm just for discussions that our minimum threshold is covering the incremental expense of the additional charge point charges. And if they're 20 cents a kilowatt hour up to, that means we could spend up to 20 cents a kilowatt hour for charge point variable charges and basically give away the electricity. And this is all in the attempt to see if there's any demand there. Could think about it that way.
Okay, so if we were to modify the motion, what would the revised motion look like?
Well, I think what you said would actually work, that 20 cents provided the revenue covers the additional charge point charges. And so we're reframing this as a demand test. We're not framing it as a cost recovery test.
In the mode of a demand test, I'd like to ask Josh if it's possible to subtract off the 3 town vehicles from the summary report there, these statistics, so that we know truly what the demand response has been.
Yeah, we'll have to leave that one for charge point, but yeah, I'll definitely ask. I'm gonna reach out tomorrow, so I'll see if that's possible to do, if they're able to, I don't know, identify which ones are which.
I mean, obviously the charge isn't going to affect the usage from the 3 town vehicles, so you'd like to know, among the residents, what is the effect?
There's 100 individual separate vehicles that connected last month, so.
Oh, 100 different vehicles. Okay.
Yeah, so how many, yeah. I don't know how many town vehicles we have. What is there, 4 or 5? I don't know.
I think we only have 3 at the moment.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. We've discussed.
But
it in
I
the
don't know what
meeting.
it is anymore. I don't know what my motion is anymore, so
Okay,
so
so
maybe we
do we rescind the motion?
start over. We'll rescind, yes, and then somebody else can make a motion. I'm rescinding it.
All right, so I know that we've looked at identifying this as a demand response test. But we can do that with 20 cents or we can do that with 30 cents. I think what we don't want to do is pay to have that demand test. So perhaps we can just simplify the motion to be a recommendation to charge an amount that recovers the cost to convert to charging such that the town nets 20 cents per kilowatt hour.
And that sort of assumes that that's about their cost of electricity, but per kilowatt hour.
It's a proxy for the town's cost of
Yeah.
electricity. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be
Yeah.
much less than what it will be this winter.
Got it. Okay.
As part of the discussion, what about the Corey suggestion? We simply
Well,
ask the select board to.
Hold on, there's a
give-
motion on the table. So is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, is there discussion?
Yes, so as part of the discussion here, what about Corey's suggestion that we simply ask the select board to give Chris the ability to make this decision, and we'll make a recommendation to him?
They're
I'm
going to
not
ask
sure
us
that-
what the recommendation is.
Well, that's what this will be then, a recommendation to Chris. Okay, I understand.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Mike Schmidt,
Debbie
aye.
Cook.
So
Sorry.
Mike Schmidt, aye.
Josh Dot and I.
Debbie Cook, aye.
Chris Haldish and I.
Steve Winter, I'll abstain since I use these charters too much.
And Tanya Bodell, aye. All right, so the motion passes
That was easy.
with 5 ayes and 1 abstention. Okay, we're coming very good, everybody. Thank you. We are, let's just do some quick updates on the next part of our agenda, which I'm trying to pull up. Okay, quick updates. FEMA grant, we did not win. We were not chosen to move along. However, the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've already discussed, does provide some incentives, so it may be useful to think about the town still moving forward if the select board wants to think about reliability and using a microgrid as a means of accomplishing that. But there's no discussion on this unless there's a question about the FEMA grant. Okay, second is the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act. We had voted to move forward with doing responding to the RFP. We did not. There were too many moving parts in the month of August to be able to pull something together that was reasonable. But we do have some research done on that. And the Inflation Reduction Act allocates a significant amount of money to diesel emissions reduction. So I think there'll be more opportunity there. Any questions on the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act? Okay, electric school bus demonstration project. We received 2 bids. We're in the process of finalizing the recommendation, and it is unlikely to be surprising. Most certainly anybody who has the benefit of subsidies or grants is able to come in at a competitive price. Mass CEC batteries for Harborview. We received the $20,000. There's a potential match by other committees in town that have funds that could bring that up to $50,000 to $60,000. And we've talked to Harborview. They're very interested in the batteries. And we've also started talking to them about solar installations. And now that we understand affordable housing gets significantly more of a reduction, this is probably going to be a lot more attractive. Any questions on the batteries for Harborview?
These are just backup batteries, Tanya?
Yes, we asked for $20,000 for the equivalent of a power wall.
Got it.
And we could get up to 8 power walls for $60,000. And that would be enough to support the common areas for 1.5 days in winter during an outage.
Okay, thanks.
And that's because they use electric heat pumps. So their load in the winter is very high. It would last for 8 days in the summer.
Mhm.
And right now they don't bring in backup energy for summer outages. So it would be an improvement.
Great, thank you.
And Tanya, if I could, I just want to thank everyone that's worked on that project. I mean, the Harborview, we mentioned it today in another meeting we had with the communications planner about it's a at-risk population and with a very unique set of circumstances. And it's just such a special and just it's the perfect example of the AEC committee just taking advantage of resources and technology to solve what is a real problem. So thanks to everyone who's on that. And I'm really looking forward to, adding on to that, these little pieces to really, bring the whole vision, forward. I think it's an example of the best things we could possibly be doing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you for all your support. Okay, Inflation Reduction Act. We've already had a lot of discussion about that. There'd be enough there to talk about for 5 meetings. So instead, what we'll do is put a link to the actual text and some summaries in the minutes. Okay, data report. We've already talked about charging stations. Is there anything else, Josh, that you want to share?
No, I sent the snapshots over to Debbie for the minutes, but yeah, it was last month was a little bit less usage than the months prior.
Awesome. Okay.
Oops,
I
you
don't
froze,
know what the
Tanya.
update is. Yep.
You broke up, Tanya.
Sorry, I don't know what the solar energy array has produced or the savings at this point. Okay, matters not reasonably known in advance.
One of the,
Maybe I should say a couple of words about aggregation.
Yep.
Okay, there have been some developments, so very quickly, there's a meeting this morning with Good Energy and the 6 towns that have gone together with it that Debbie had organized. Good Energy replied to all 6 towns now. First to Westwood, and DPU said okay, and then they made a compliance filing for all the other 5 towns, and DPU came back and requested yet another compliance filing. Stupid editorial things like removing the double periods at the end of a sentence and that sort of thing. Anyways, they're continuing to delay. But let's see. With Good Energy and everybody this morning, we decided something useful would be that if each town would submit a letter to the DPU, maybe from the town manager or select board, explaining our disappointment with the delay and the importance of timely action by the DPU. The team that Debbie organizes is in the process of drafting a letter that can be reviewed by our town manager and officials in the other 5 towns. Let's see. I mentioned that 350 Massachusetts is also trying to organize some kind of action whereby 350 would like people in the various towns. There are 34 towns, not just 6 towns that we're working with, or the 3 towns plus 3 more under Good Energy went in at the same time. But there are 34 towns that have been waiting for more than 2 years for a response from the DPU to get their plans approved. So 350 would like people from all these towns to send a complaint to the DPU. And by law, the DPU is required to respond to each individual citizen's complaint. So this will really make a strong statement that that people were unhappy. And then there's going to be a public hearing in October. I don't know the date, where people can make comments and about the DPU's performance. It's a review of a DPU public hearing. So, anyways, that's what's been going on. Any questions about that? Did I butcher that too badly, Debbie? You want to make a comment?
Nope. No, I think that the only thing is that Good Energy did encourage us to, to actually start, I don't want to say getting aggressive, but being, sending letters, doing what we can to move things along. So they, in the past, they always said lay low, but now their tune has changed, right, Steve? They used to say lay low, and now they're saying, I think a couple of them sounded really pretty darn frustrated.
I should mention maybe that also I talked to Senator Barrett about this, not talked to him, but I asked him a question on a Zoom call. He's well aware of the problem at DPU, and his response was, quote, "We need a new DPU." So he doesn't think anything good is going to happen until we get Maura Healy in there and get the 3 commissioners replaced.
Interesting. Okay, anything else?
there was one last thing from my side. Was we met with, as Corey mentioned, we met with Justin from the communications team at the town to talk about social media and how that might work. A couple things came up. Debbie and I were speaking with them. One, Chris Senior sends out a 5 things email every week. So if we wanted to include something, we could submit that to Chris and include that in an email that goes out to, I guess, Debbie, would you call that just a select group of townspeople? I didn't really define kind of who was on it, but they have a group that has signed up for this email, and it just kind of updates on what's going on in the town. So that's something we can keep in mind and send over if we have any big updates.
So one thing he suggested, he suggested that at the end of every meeting that we have maybe an agenda item of something that we want to send over to them for the email, so that at least once a month we'll have a presence, and that he'll also send it out to social media and his other contacts. So maybe we could have an agenda item for sort of our PR publicity info about what's going on with us. And we
Okay,
pick
that's a great idea.
one.
I'll add that. And when I circulate the draft agenda, if I've forgotten it, please put it in. Or if there's an update on something, please put it in or
Okay.
suggest it. And then that way we can move forward with a complete draft agenda.
And the second thing that came up was they've revamped the website. They want us to, spoke with Corey, he's recommending we just go through, maybe put that on an agenda item for next month to go through the website and update that. I think we have to at least add myself and Chris to the names that are on the committee, but update any content. If you want to take stuff down, put stuff up, maybe talk about what we should have up there. And the third thing was about the social media. The process we discussed was, we would decide on a group of content, whether it be, four different pieces for the next month, for a weekly posting on Facebook and Instagram. We were kind of pushing to have our own site, and then possibly Justin Schreier, who's in this on the communications team for the town, would repost on the town website, on the town, social media sites. So, because they have like 3,000 people that are following them. So we can start building our own individual following. But he was going to check with Chris to make sure that was okay. And he's just sent me an email actually asking to talk tomorrow about it. So this might not have been approved. I don't know. So I'll have to find out kind of where that landed. But that's pretty much it. I'll find out more tomorrow and just let everyone know.
Awesome. Great. Okay, so there are some good action items. Great progress. Thank you, everybody, for staying on and asking great questions. And Matt, I thought that was very insightful. Thank you to Pat for arranging that. And we are at the end of our meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. A second?
Second.
All right, there's no discussion. We'll just say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Chris. Welcome, Chris, to the committee.
Yeah, Chris. Welcome.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.